Okay, today I'm gonna record a video on how to write an essay. Um, I've done this in Chinese, but I thought it would be useful for those students who can't understand my Chinese. Okay, essay writing is really common at the university, especially at the business school. A lot of the subject, for example, management, international business, marketing, human resource management, or even economics, they have such kind of assessment format. What I found, the problems made by, or mistakes made by students are they sometimes do not answer the question correctly because they do not understand the question properly. So the first thing first, when you try to address an essay, make sure you understand the question carefully. Okay, read the question carefully, understand what you are supposed to do. If you're not, then ask. Okay, do not assume you understand what you're supposed to do, because that happens a lot. Okay, in English we often talk about assume. It's as you and me. So do not assume. If you don't understand, try to email your supervisor, your module leader, or your lecturer, whoever teach you the course, or try to schedule an appointment with her or him, because that's gonna help a lot. If you don't understand, you can have a discussion and show your thinking to your lecturer, your professor, and they probably give you some ideas or their expectations from their perspective. So that help you a lot. For those some students, they want to pursue a higher degree after their postgraduate, after their undergraduate. A lot of times they would require a recommendation letter or reference letter. So getting to know your professor, make them aware that you are one of their students, you are paying effort to your essay assignment, you are active in the classroom discussion, which gonna help a lot, because they understand that you are paying effort to your study and you're making good progress. It's more likely for them to write a recommendation for you if you want to pursue a higher degree. Okay, so take the opportunity to meet your supervisor if you don't understand what your assignment is about. It's okay to discuss the questions with your classmates, but try to not copy or share answers, because that's a big problem in the UK or other English-speaking countries. Plagiarism is a big issue. Okay, I understand some international students in their home countries it's not a big problem there, but in the UK, especially if you copy somebody else's work, it's become a big problem. So try not copy or share answers. You probably sometimes asked by friends to just they want to have a look, but you never know what's going to happen afterwards. They probably just make some modifications and rashly submit it. If you're caught, it's really difficult to explain what happened. So try to avoid that situation by not sharing or copying the answers. Okay, so these are the really important things. Understand the question, make sure you understand them. The different formats of your essay, sometimes it can be short question, okay? Sometimes it can be a case study or scenario analysis. You often have group assignment or individual essay. Some students found the group assignment struggling because some group members they're not showing up in group meetings, they're not paying efforts to the group assignment, they're busy and there are always free riders. In reality, in real life, it happens a lot. So my advice, probably, if you have time, if you want to pay attention or paying efforts to the course you want to get good grade, try to be a group leader. I understand a group leader normally pay a lot of efforts into the group assignment, but take it as a good learning experience. You have to do more work than other group members. You have to coordinate work, but that's a good learning process. In the workplace, you probably, take more responsibilities in the future, and you have such experience, trying to be more active, to trying to be the leader, which is going to help you for your future career. The individual essay is simple, just based on your own study. Normally distinguish yourself from others. If you are paying efforts to it, you make it outstanding, So these are the formats of the essay. Here I'm going to show you one of the examples taken from my previous teaching. There are two questions. Sometimes, can be two questions, sometimes just one question there. So first question, critically explain what is meant by core competency and discuss why outsourcing has become an important element of competitive strategy. The second question, critically examine the potential constraints and risks associated with outsourcing. If you're given these questions, how would you like to approach it? So first, let's take a look at the number one, critically explain what is meant by core competency. If you learned management degree, you probably heard core competency. It's something a company really good at, help them to be a leader or being competitive advantage over their competitors. So when you asked to critically explain, you can't simply just put the definition there. You can't just Google the definition, the concept. You have to critically explain the concept. Okay. And the second part, discuss why outsourcing has become an important element of competitive strategy. You probably heard about competitive strategy. You probably heard about outsourcing. Okay, when companies, they don't make some things themselves, they can outsource it to other suppliers. That's called outsourcing. Of course, outsourcing has different formats. Okay, so if you given this question, how would you like to approach it? Okay, so think about it. So in your essay, normally it has a formal structure depending on your university requirement. Different universities, different schools, they have different requirement. Normally it has an introduction. Sometimes they require you to do a literature review. Okay, but the main part of your essay is the discussion and analysis part. So these two parts, literature or discussion analysis, usually forms the main body text of your essay. So in your discussion analysis part, which shows your thinking, your analysis, which are normally supported by literature and examples, which I'm going to talk about later. And the final part is a conclusion, which talk about, summarize what you have been discussing, what are the main points, possibly some limitations of your study. Okay, depending on the word limit, introduction probably around 200 words, conclusion 200, 300 words. In the end, you need to produce a reference list. So all the citations you cited, you need to give a list in the end. The word counts normally between 1500 to 300 words. Okay, undergraduate normally shorter. Okay, but in January falls into the 1500 to 1300 words limit. Okay, appendix normally won't count for the word limit. So if you have extra figures, you have extra tables, you think those informations are relevant, you can put them in the appendix. Okay, so this is really simple structure compared to a dissertation. In the UK, the undergraduate students are required to produce a bigger dissertation in the end, a thesis, okay, in order to get their degree. So let's take a look at the first question. Critically explain what is meant by core competency and discuss why outsourcing has become an important element of competitive strategy. So, if you learned management course before, you probably heard about Michael Porter's competitive strategy or competitive advantage matrix. So, in this matrix, it differentiated companies into two major categories. So, one is focused on the cost dimension, the other is focused on differentiation. So, company can either compete on the cost dimension, they are good at making things cheap. Others focus on differentiation, so differentiated from other competitors because they are more innovative, they are creative. Okay, so when you address this question, what is core competency, which is what they're really good at? Okay, so you need to probably not just give the concept definitions, you need to evaluate what that means. And probably this matrix gonna help you. And the second part discuss why outsourcing has become an important element of competitive strategy. So if company want to compete in the market, how this outsourcing can help them to compete? Okay, so this matrix probably can help you to address the question. You probably have other theories, other concepts, but this probably gonna help you by using the Porter's generic strategies. So how to address this question? When you have an essay to write, when you think about how you construct your whole essay, the first thing I want you to think about is to make your points clear. So in your main body text after the introduction, you probably need to build your arguments. In each paragraph, at the beginning of each paragraph, you need to make your points clear. Okay? I know that in some culture, in some other countries, you need to give examples, you need to talk about first and then summarize into a point. But in English academic writing, at the beginning of each paragraph, you need to make your points clear. So for example, let's go back to our example. So why outsourcing become an important element of competitive strategy? So the first point you could make is outsourcing can help companies to focus on their core competencies and also those non-core competent business activities to suppliers, to other partners or players in the market. Okay, so that's becoming your point, because outsourcing can help companies focus on their own thing, their own core competency. Okay, and also those non-core competency or non-value adding activities to other companies or something the company not really good at. Okay, for example, if you heard about Apple, of course, when they're making iPhones, okay, what the company really good at is not making the iPhones, but designing the iPhones. Okay, so what the company's core competency is their innovation, their innovative capability, rather than making the iPhone at a cheap price. So that's why they outsource the manufacturing business to suppliers in China, in some other countries, because that's not their core competency. They ship the iPhones using airplanes, which is not a cheap way, okay? And that's something they're not really good at. Okay, logistics, transportation. So they outsource those activities to their external suppliers. Okay, so you could make your point for this paragraph by saying that outsourcing can help companies to focus on their core competencies by outsourcing, okay, those non-core competent activities to other companies. Therefore, they can reduce cost, improve efficiency. So that paragraph is about this point and how you support your point. You can't just make such argument without explaining it. You need to then use literature and examples to support it. So you probably read a lot of research which has been done before. They talk about how the outsourcing can help companies to improve their core competencies and help them to cut down the cost, improve efficiencies. Okay, there are a lot of studies out there. So you can use those literatures to support your argument. You can also use the example, for example, the Apple example I just talked about. Use those big companies, the well-known companies' cases. You can, read them from newspapers, from some journals. Okay, don't just use your personal experience. Okay, use those big companies, everybody knows, to give the evidence. So using the literature, using the examples to support your idea. Okay, once you finish the idea in one paragraph, then move on to the next paragraph. That forms your argument. The second point is try to make your arguments logical. This happens a lot to some international students. Probably the way of thinking are a little bit different. Probably the culture are different. But when you write in English, academic writing, you need to follow a good logical flow. So you have the sentences well connected. I read some students' paper, they jump from one point to another. It's kind of lack of the connections between each sentences. So in each paragraph, you need to have a good connections between each sentences, make a good logical flow. In English, we have a lot of connection words, for example, for instance, because, since, therefore, or hence, or although. A lot of the connection words, use them properly, and that will help you to form a good logical flow. Okay, don't just make points from one to another without good connections. That make the reader difficult to understand what the points you're trying to make. Okay. And the third point I'm trying to make is try to be critic. There are a lot of articles there, the different research, different authors, they may have different opinions, they may have different findings in their research and studies. So what's your opinion on those different points? What's your judgment on those points? Don't just trust what others say. try to provide your own assessment. So try to be reflective and show your critical thinking. For example, let's go back to our outsourcing example. We read a lot of articles which support the idea that outsourcing can help companies to focus on their core competencies, and then they can reduce the cost, improve efficiencies by using outsourcing. But other studies, they look at from a different angle. They talked about, outsourcing actually can help company to improve their core competencies by, for example, establishing a good strategic partnerships with the suppliers. That happens a lot in the industry. In the mobile phone industry, for example, companies, the mobile phone makers, they probably don't have the ability to produce cameras. They probably has no ability to make the mobile phone chips. So they form this strategic partnership with those suppliers. In China, you probably heard about Huawei. They form strategic partnership with Leica, which is a camera company making good cameras. So by forming this strategic partnership with Leica, Huawei was able to produce mobile phones with really high quality camera in their mobile phones. Okay, that helped them to compete and win a big market share out there. Even though they have some mobile chip supplying problems at the moment due to the sanctions from the states. Okay, but you understand the ideas. So by having this partnership, by using the outsourcing, you can access to the technologies and capabilities that the company are lacking. Okay, so you probably read a lot of literature studies talking about this phenomenon, and use this literature to support your point. So that become your argument, and also use the examples to underpin your argument. Okay, so try to be critic. So that's important what your professor are looking at. And the final point is make your essay interesting. You can't just explain the concept, the definitions, and talk about the advantage, disadvantages. Try to be, bring some insightful ideas, something new. Make it interesting. For example, in outsourcing, right now we're having a pandemic. That bring big disruption or challenges in the supply chain, in the manufacturing. So companies probably need to think about how do they reposition their outsourcing strategies. Okay, so that's an interesting study. Okay, so that's the point. When you try to address the essay questions, try to make your points clear, try to make your argument logical, and try to be critic and make your essay interesting. So that will help you to get a good grade in the end. There's some other important issues probably students often ignore, which I summarized them into 4G. So first of all, good formatting. Okay, make sure you format your essay properly before making the final submission. I normally would recommend students to use Times New Roman 12 pounds font. Okay, in the UK, Commonwealth countries, Australia, New Zealand, they use the justified formatting. In the States, they probably just use left justified, use indented. Okay, use table and figures. And when you use table and figures, make sure you put the captions correctly. You put for tables, you have to put the captions above the table. For figures, you put them under each figure. At the beginning of your essay, you probably need to produce a table of contents, okay, which make it look professional. Remember to put page numbers there for your main text in your essay. use appropriate headings for each paragraph, for each sections, which gonna help the reader to understand what you're talking about for each sections. Okay, so that's good formatting. Good referencing. If you cite somebody else's work, make sure you cite and put the referencing there. In the UK, probably you use Harvard referencing, or in other countries use different styles. Make sure you learn those styles. You need to produce the in-text citations. If they're direct quotation, you need to put the page numbers after each quotation. And in the end, you need to produce the bibliography. Okay, there's a good referencing software which I introduced in my other video called Zotero. If you're interested, you can look at it. It can automatically produce the in-text citations and bibliographies in the end. Good English, okay? When you make writings in English, make sure you check them free of errors, grammar issues, typos, because that will help you to get good grade. If there are lots of typos, errors, professor won't like it. Also, try to use clear and short sentences. Okay, if you're not from if you're not a native speaker, try to borrow a book called Academic English Writing, the different authors, which can help you to understand how to write good academic English writing. Okay. The last thing but not least is good timing. Make sure you prepare your essay properly. Don't leave everything in the end. It happens a lot. A lot of students email me saying they have problems with the internet, their laptops broke down. So make sure you prepare things well in advance and don't leave everything till the end. So that's 4G. Make sure you understand them. Make sure you check them before the final submission. Finally, going to talk about case study. So the case study is quite similar to the short question. You follow the same structures, the same formatting, same arguments, how you build arguments, use reference and examples. But most important is when you try to provide answers, you need to relate the concept or theories to the case context. A lot of students, they simply discuss the concept without good referencing to the case context, which is wrong. Okay, you're given the case study, you need to talk about the case study. But remember, you don't have to repeat the case or questions in your essay, because as a professor, we know the case better, we know the question better. You don't have to repeat them in your essay. Okay, so that's my video on how to write an essay. This is a short video. I've just put the thing together probably in 20 minutes. If you do have other questions, you can leave the comments or feedback at the end of my video. I remember that this is not something you have to follow, but rather giving you some, from my experience, good advice how you address those essays. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye.